7 o'clock. Call the meeting to order. Meeting of the Carver Select Board for Tuesday, June 16th, 2020. I'd like to welcome Mr. Hoffman and Ms. Bogart to the board. And we could stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Ms. Bogart, if you could read our community prayer.
Almighty God, humbly we pray your blessing as we concern our life with the opportunity to serve our community. Enhance us with your spirit of dignity and selflessness. May we become instruments of support and understanding as we seek to bring an environment of trust and purpose among all who provide the many services that make us all that we can become. Help us achieve the goals of our commitment in this office that is now our responsibility. And especially, we lift our prayers for all the citizens of our community that we've been allowed to serve, that they may discover the fullness and joy of life that we all seek. And keep those serving in our armed forces and our first responders in our hearts and thoughts. Amen.
Thank you. Mr. LaFawn, I'll turn the meeting over to you for the reorganization of the board.
Hopefully this is the most you hear from me tonight, but are there any nominations for chair? I'm sorry, do you tend to do chair and vice chair as one vote or
Two separate votes.
Okay. Nominations for chair, anybody?
I'd like to nominate Mark Townsend as chairman.
Is there a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Okay, discussion.
Mark, what do you bring to the board as a chairman?
What do I bring to the board?
Yeah.
I think I bring a common sense. I try to look at all sides of an issue, and I come with no agenda. I come ready to look at all sides, listen to all sides, and then make a vote based on the facts that are before me.
Okay. And are we accepting more than one nomination
Yes.
here, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Are there other nominations?
Well, I think I would nominate Ms. Sarah Hewins for chairman.
Is there a second to that?
I'll second that too, for discussion.
Any
Okay.
discussion?
The same question, Shara. What do you offer to be the chairman to the town and the committee?
Well, thanks for the question, Bob. 20-plus years of service to the town, not only as an employee, but as a volunteer. I'm working on my 12th year as a select board member. I think I have the experience and institutional knowledge that would make a good chair.
Any other comments, questions? So acting on the first motion, those in favor of electing Mark Townsend chair, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Opposed? Is that what you said? Those
Yes,
opposed?
those opposed, I'm sorry, yes.
Opposed.
All those in favor of electing Sarah Hewins as chair, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Well, actually, that's not necessary.
Congratulations, Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Would you like to, it was three to,
No, I'll just take the chair sign.
Yeah.
You can stay there.
so accepting nominations for vice chair.
Is this?
There you go. Thank you.
You got yourself straightened out over there now?
We'll need a new sign. It
Yes.
says chair.
I'm so sorry. Well, I'm accepting nominations for vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Bob Belbin, vice chair.
I'll second it.
Other nominations?
I'll also nominate Jim Hoffman.
Is there a second to Mr. Hoffman's nomination? Hearing none. All those in favor of electing Bob Belbin as vice chairman, say aye.
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 That's unanimous. Very good.
I didn't vote for myself.
You
I
can.
didn't.
Okay, I'm sorry.
You're allowed
I'm sorry.
to.
I understand that.
Okay.
Then if I had a gavel, I'd pass it, so you're on, Chairman, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So we are at the citizens' participation portion of the meeting. I guess at this point, I'd ask if there's anyone waiting at the door who would like to engage us in citizens' participation.
Anybody for citizen participation? We have nobody, Sarah.
Okay. Thank you. The next item, moving right along, I don't believe this has to be exactly the right time, does it? Do we have the person applying to be appointed to the rec committee here? Oh, good, okay. So this is a request for appointment to the Recreation Committee. We have Caprice DesRoches.
Yes,
Thank you, Caprice.
thank you.
Could you tell us, we did read your outline there, could you just kind of summarize your interest, and then maybe there'll be questions from the board members?
Okay. I've lived in this town for many years, and I've never really been able to have the time to become involved. And I just realized one day, I was like, I'm going in, I'm voting for people, and I really, quite frankly, didn't know that much. And I figured I plan on staying in Carver. My children have been raised here. I know they plan on staying in this town. And I just figured I'd like to be more involved. I'd like to know what I'm doing, my community, people who I care about. And I just figured it'd be the best time to start.
Sounds like good reasons to me. Board members have questions or comments?
I'll make a motion, we approve.
Second.
Any discussion at all?
Thank you very much for
All in
stepping
favor
up.
of appointing Caprice DesRoches to the Recreation Committee, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Thank
Welcome
you.
aboard.
very good.
Thank you for
Thank you so
stepping
much.
Thank you for stepping up.
And now we have the COVID-19 update from our public safety officials, Chiefs Stufoli, Walsh, and Weston.
I suspect we can do first. I think if somebody takes the chair there and have us get comfortable here. Right. Yeah, it's great. We have 3 chairs spaced out.
Okay.
Very good.
Thank you, gentlemen, for coming to give us an update. Are you going first, Tom?
I would guess so, yes.
Okay, very good.
So I'll just cover EMS and emergency management. As of the last update from the Board of Health, there were no Carver residents who had COVID-19, but unfortunately, we did lose another one, bringing our death count up to 4. All departments all EMS isolation procedures have proven to be effective, and no members of the Carver EMS department have contracted the disease. All PPE supplies and equipment are at adequate levels. Our EMS license inspection, normally held in April or May because the license expires on May 31st, was delayed by the Office of Emergency Medical Services due to COVID-19 and has been extended to August 31st. And there'll be an inspection before that time is the plan. Our call volume has fallen for the months of March, April, and May, and June, which is kind of counterintuitive to having a health emergency, but people don't want to go to the hospital unless they absolutely have to, and it seems like they, all services, to the best of my understanding around us, are experiencing the same thing. We did receive $18,500 from the first tranche of federal stimulus money, which was basically given to ambulance services in recognition of, with the pandemic, that there was going to be additional expenses and possible loss of revenue. And this was based on Medicare and Medicaid numbers usage from last year. We could either keep it or send it back, and we kept it. And there's also a second tranche of stimulus money, which you had to apply for, and we have applied for money under that as well. Our billing company has estimated that our loss for April and May was about $33,000 a month in lost revenue as a result of COVID-19. And in spite of all of this, to put a bright light on it, I still feel that we'll bring in more money than we'll expend this year. And all else is well in EMS. Our staffing levels are fine, and the finances should work out fine. From an emergency management point of view, we continue to monitor the COVID-19 expenses. We're presently completing our application to renew our local emergency planning committee certification, which we have to do every 5 years. With all the PPE requirements largely met for emergency services, MEMA has shut down the point of distribution that they were in Bridgewater. So there's no local distribution point from MEMA now for PPE, because all of the supply chains have been opened up again, and so that the stuff can be purchased. And we are beginning to dismantle the nuclear response program, which, as a result of the nuclear power plant closing, will be working with MEMA and CDI, the present company, the present owner of the Pilgrim Nuclear Power Station, which is, as we know, closed over the next year, a month or two, to dismantle that. And hurricane season is starting, and we'll be distributing information on Area 58, as well as putting together hurricane information packets. So that is it. Did I make it within 2 minutes, like the agenda said?
So Chief Walsh, I just have one quick question for you. Even when the Emergency Operations Center basically doesn't do what it used to do because of the power plant closing down, are we still going to need to update the hazard mitigation plan?
Yes. Yeah, there'll be that's a federal requirement, okay. Which I think is 2021. And you worked on it with me the last time, and as you know, I swore then I would never do it again. So
I know you wouldn't.
We'll be looking for a consultant. It's really the only way to do it. It's just an unworldly experience dealing with FEMA on it. It really is. Yeah. Sarah was good at it, though.
You're right.
Yeah, it was very bad. Yeah. Yeah, that will be all aspects that are non-nuclear stay in place. And right. The Emergency Management Director's job, which has been a full-time job, as of July 1st, is going to become a part-time job.
Okay. Thank you.
That's the plan. And I plan to, for the time being, stay on to do that.
Okay, great. Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Oh.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, and welcome the new members to the board, and congratulations, I think. Good luck. I will be brief. Your Carver Fire Department, we are still 100% in service through the COVID pandemic. We're responding to all emergencies and incidents with our discipline. We have specific COVID-19 response procedures in effect in the fire department, and we follow them on every incident. Chief officers are handling officer-only calls. We do have calls right now where we will only send an officer to, like a smoke detector issue where we know it's a battery problem and so forth. So limit exposure to our firefighters and our officers, the chief officers are handling those calls. We are continuing company training and officer meetings. We have scaled back our large-scale trainings and meetings. We're not doing them for the foreseeable future. The Board of Health agent continues to provide us in public safety in the Fire Dispatch Center with COVID updates and addresses, so we have them on a daily basis. Emergency Management, under Tom's purview, continues to work with us for PPE equipment that we need, so we are all set in that area. We do have the fire stations professionally cleaned and sanitized. We've had them done twice by a professional company, and then our custodial staff goes through them daily, wiping down door handles and counters and so forth. We did purchase 2 COVID disinfectant spray machines. Other public safety disciplines have them also, and we use them as needed. So they are in service if we need them. We continue to do fire inspections, and on a limited and kind of an emergency type basis, we are allowed to through the state. So that's kind of where we are from a fire department. We have held our own through the pandemic. We have had to have some firefighters go through some isolation procedures, but to this point, no one has been affected. So, do you have any questions for me? Keep it quick. I do have one thing before I leave. I would ask you to be sure to give EMS Chief Tom Walsh a hard time, maybe even congratulations, as Tom is retiring as EMS Chief in 14 days. So that's after 44 years of public safety service to the town of Carver. So I think give him a hard time. We are.
Thank you.
Chief?
Yes?
Thank you. When is your next training session for new firefighters?
So we will start advertising again. We start the process right around August 1st. You'll start seeing signs go up around the community and banners. You'll start seeing advertisements go out. We collect applications until October 1st. After we get all the applications collected on October 1st, right around October 15th-ish, we offer an in-house exam where any person that submitted an application, we allow them to take the exam. We send away for the exam. It's like a civil service. They'll take the exam, and anyone who gets over a 70% or better score will be allowed to go into the interview phase. And the interviews last anywhere from 1 to 3 interviews. And we make our final decisions usually around the beginning of December on who we want to bring on board. And then then it's paperwork for that point, physical abilities tests and medical physicals, where actual training would start usually around the end of January and then continues till about almost May. So with this year's class, obviously we were interrupted with the COVID pandemic. They did technically graduate our recruit training program, and they stopped that in May. Then they get assigned to their fire stations. So right now they're at their prospective stations where they go 60 days of training in that station. And they're going to finish that in like the first week of July. So we are planning a graduation ceremony. We usually do the graduation after recruit training. This year we've moved it to the end, so it's going to be around July, I think it's 13th, 14th, or 15th, I'd have to look. And that's tentatively planned at this time. So we're hoping to do one big graduation ceremony at that time, and that will be on July 11th, Saturday, July 11th. So that's a kind of a 1-minute process of how it works.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is that at 12 noon, Craig, or?
That would probably be at 12 noon.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't hold me to that.
Okay.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here. Congratulations to both of you. Welcome. Mine's going to be similar to Chief Weston's because most of the stuff's the same. The Carver Police Department remains in operation to provide emergency services to the citizens of the town while taking some actions to minimize personal interaction, yet still get the job done. Carver Public Safety Dispatch Center also remains in full operation. We've changed the way we do record requests. They've been accomplished mostly through email and by phone right now. Just recently, we worked with Dave Siedendorf to start putting up some plexiglass so that we'll be able to open the lobby soon so that people can come back in and make those requests in person. As you mentioned, as Chief Weston mentioned, with the assistance of Carver Emergency Management, we've been able to maintain our PPE for all our officers and dispatchers. With working with the Board of Health, we've maintained a list of positive COVID-19 addresses in town, and right at this moment there are none, which is a great thing. We've also worked with the Board of Health to advise and educate the public as to the necessary restrictions and measures needed to reduce the transmission of disease. Currently, there are no members of the department out due to the virus. We've had no police officers go out due to the virus, and actually no dispatchers, although one dispatcher had a family member test positive, so he was quarantined for 14 days. That was the only person that was affected by it so far. One of the great benefit of our cruiser program was that each officer is assigned a cruiser. That keeps them in one cruiser and help to minimize any possibility of spread. That was one of the big things they found in Taunton that had COVID-19 go through the department quite rapidly because of their sharing cruisers and not getting them decontaminated. So another plus to our cruiser program as it is today was that each officer has their own cruiser and they didn't have to be decontaminated every day. The station's been sanitized every Thursday by ServPro and is cleaned daily by the town's custodial staff. In addition, all work surfaces are wiped down by officers and dispatchers after they use them. We adjusted how we process firearms renewals and new applications, taking applications in through the mail. Renewals, we can handle that whole process by mail. New ones, we still have to bring them in at some point to do fingerprints and a picture, so we're still waiting until we open the station back up for that part of it, but we've been able to handle most of that through there. And so far, we've had no real interruptions to service at all because of the COVID-19. We've worked with the other two disciplines in carrying out our mission and been very successful in that. Does anybody have any questions?
Madam Chair, I just want to thank all three chiefs and through you, your departments, for all your hard work through this whole COVID-19 situation. I just think you've done a tremendous job, and your entire department should be applauded, so thank you.
Thank you.
Same here. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Chief Dufley, I wanted to just kind of thank you and the participants in the vigil that was held, I think it was a week ago Friday.
Yes, June 5th.
It was very, very peaceful, very respectful, and I think very meaningful.
Yes, I agree. It turned out very well. The young lady did a very nice job putting it together, and it was a pleasure to work with.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could just add to that, no offense, Mark, but the planning effort and execution went far beyond Mark. I think our other chiefs had a tremendous amount of planning. Fortunately, nothing, their efforts weren't, didn't come to naught because everybody was prepared, but I think a lot of times, and I think a lot of the effort that the police department put in was invisible, and I think that's a positive.
Yes, it was a team effort between the three disciplines and a lot of behind-the-scenes work to make sure everything went well. We planned for the best, but we're prepared for the worst, just based on the news footage of other things. But knowing Carver and knowing how things normally go in here, it came off just as I expected. But there was a lot of behind-the-scenes work by the two gentlemen beside me and all of our officers, and it worked out very well. We did have, people were concerned, but that's what they saw on the news every day, so I can understand that concern, and we were prepared for that. We didn't need it, and it was good. It all came out very well.
And I didn't mean to neglect the other two chiefs. Thank you all.
Could I ask a question on the agenda? I noticed further down there's something about the Pilgrim and Triathlon. Do you need me to stay for that, or you guys are going to be looking to approve, or is that from before? They're asking to do a bike portion of their triathlon through town on September 19th.
Okay. Oh, the triathlon?
Yes.
Do we want to take that out of order and get it done earlier if the chief has any issues?
I don't. I just want to let you know that I did speak with the gentleman prior to COVID-19. My concern would be that's also a weekend for the King Richard's Fair, so we adjusted his course so it wouldn't, as best possible, so it wouldn't coincide with any traffic. It's going to still cross over Main Street, but we're going to go out through the back roads. I don't believe it'll impact traffic from the fair, so just so you have that input. Or
So
if you want me
have
to
no issues with it? There's no issues?
No, no issue. Not from me, and I don't believe the other chiefs either, but I just wanted to mention that. If you want me to stick around, I'll stick around, but if you don't need me to stick around, then...
I don't think you need to. I think we're glad to hear that you have no issues.
Okay.
Thanks for bringing it up.
Sure, thank you. Sorry to change the subject.
No,
Thank you.
Quite all right. Thank you. Thank you all.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I got a message. I think there are a few members of the Finance Committee who are locked outside Town Hall. Evidently, the front door must have locked. Thank you.
Okay. So we are at the joint meeting with the Finance Committee, and I guess we'll wait for the members to get here. Kate, do you want to come on in? Do you know how many are coming offhand? I'm not sure. Okay, that's fine.
What do you want us?
6 feet apart.
Everyone, I think there's only one mic, so people will have to rotate through the microphone.
So, Mr. Finance Committee Chair, are these all the people coming tonight, do you
As
know?
far as I know.
Okay.
As far as I know, Madam Chair.
Would you like to call your committee's meeting to order?
Sure. I call the meeting of the FinCom and the Select Board to order on June 16, 2020 at 7:25.
Thank you. Mr. LaFawn, would you like to
Sure.
enlighten us?
Alan, I'll start. This, correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is that the issue here is essentially where $99,000 should be recognized on the warrant for town meeting. There's two articles that would seem to fit. One is the budget article, the other is Article 3, which is the appropriation for free cash. I believe, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, Alan, but at some point, I believe in March, there was a conversation with the board, and it was decided at that point that it would be in Article 3. I believe when my predecessor was leaving, he had made the determination to put that in the budget article. So at this point, it's really a matter of where that money is recognized. Is it in the budget article, or is it in the Article 3 town meeting free cash appropriations? Is that concise enough, Alan? Did I?
Yeah, you're pretty much there. If I may, Madam Chair.
Certainly.
Welcome to the new board members, by the way. Congratulations. At our joint meeting in March with the FinCom and the then Select Board, Article 3 had a $99,000 expenditure in it, which the board had approved Articles A, B, C, D, E, F, H, and I, and requested that item G was provide funding for Select Board for future restructuring. That was going to be a separate article on the $99,000, and it would be administered by a joint collaboration between the board and the FinCom, and it was for the future search for a permanent town administrator, and also to fund his position in an interim period. And then COVID hit. So a lot of that went the way that it went, and we ended up where we are. But this $99,000 is still sitting in Article 4, I believe it is, as simply a free cash item with no explanation to it. So there are a couple of problems with this that we see. The first one being is that we're now using free cash to fund a employee's salary. So while that in itself is not a problem, it becomes a problem when we need to use more free cash next year or the year after to fund an additional 4 teachers, 3 more department heads, and whatever, under the premise of, well, we used it before. So this becomes an issue. I'm trying to not set the precedent. I don't have a problem, I don't believe the committee has any problem with the free cash being used for this instance, but I think that it deserves to have total transparency as to what it is for. And it doesn't define that in the warrant. Rather than have to get up and do a big explanation in a dog and pony show at the warrant, we thought it would be a little bit easier at the town meeting. We thought it'd be a little bit easier if we could get this back into Article 3, where it gets voted by town meeting and by this committee and by the Select Board, so that there's transparency. And Adam has done a lot more work on this than I have, so I'm going to roll this over to Adam with your permission.
Certainly.
Thank you. You got the chair.
All right. So, thank you. I think Alan did a fine job of summarizing sort of what our initial concerns were as it relates to this specific issue. The history behind how we got from where we were to now, specifically the March 3rd meeting, I think is relevant only because it highlights the fact that there was a consensus amongst the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen, or the Select Board, that we were going to handle it a certain way. Circumstances out of our control, some within our control, some out of our control, have changed what was voted and agreed to on March 3rd. So if we decide to move past that and just focus on the task at hand, essentially the issue is what it is, but I also have concerns about leaving the free cash line item in Article 4, as it's currently stated, as a deduction from the operating budget, resulting in the town's share of the budget that has to be funded, which is essentially the number that's being voted on at town meeting is the town's share of the budget, which is roughly $10,500,000. By having that $99,000 listed in Article 4 in that way, town meeting does not have the ability to approve or disapprove the expense or the use of that $99,000. Because the town meeting procedures state that you cannot increase the dollar amount of an article. So if it goes to town meeting as currently stated, and town meeting says, wait a minute, we don't agree with using free cash in this way for this expense, so we don't want to fund it, it would essentially increase the dollar amount of that article, and that can't happen the way our town meeting policies are written. So my personal belief is that we should remove it from Article 5, put it in Article 3 with the other free cash allocations, and address it there and give town meeting a voice in whether that $99,000 should come from free cash and be used in this way or not. But if we leave it where it is, town meeting doesn't have that power, unless we decide at town meeting to completely tear up the town meeting procedures, which I just think would be, I mean, the way it's written, it would be, any motion to do so would be out of order. It's not an ideal situation. In my personal opinion, I think using the $99,000 from free cash to fund an operating expense violates two components of our financial management policy as well. So it's not ideal, and we can let town meeting decide if that's appropriate or not. But I think if we move it to Article 3, then town meeting has a say. If we leave it in Article 5, they don't. So that would be my request or my suggestion tonight.
So if I can just interject here, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rick, but I think it's more of traditional that you can't ask for more than is on the warrant. You can go down, you can go lower. I don't know that it's the law that you can't go up, but
Yeah,
it's never done.
It's in the Carver town meeting procedures under motions. Just, I'll read it real quick. It says, if a warrant article for the expenditure of money contains a specific dollar amount, no motion shall be in order if it proposes an expenditure that exceeds the sum presented in the warrant article, unless the amount is followed by the words, or such other sum or similar language. And so historically, we've never done that.
That's my point, right. Yes, Mr. Bell.
So, looking at the wording here, I don't have a problem with the 99,000, where it goes or where it comes from, or it gets put where and what article. I don't care. But if the words that you just stated, all right, or the words or any other action relative thereto, if those words are put in there for the article, okay, I have a different opinion of this, is that anything can be done if those words are in there, whether you want to increase or decrease, whether you like it or not, okay? And it's up to town meeting to decide if they want to or not, all right? So that whole thing about those wording and the legal aspect is, I think that's wrong, all right? The words or any other action relative thereto are important for town meeting to make the determination of whatever they want to do, all right? And those words aren't in here.
They aren't.
With these two things. So basically what's there is what's there. And you can decrease an article, but as what happened to me at a prior town meeting is I tried to move money from one article to the next. I was called out of order because you can't do that, but I was talking about it and I didn't make the motion at that point, but I wasn't even allowed to finish that. So in order to, if you wanted to go to town meeting and say, I want to move this money from here to another, you can't do that because if you want to use precedence, they said that I couldn't do it. If I can't do it, you can't do it.
That's exactly right.
Okay, so, I mean, if we're gonna change this to put the 99,000 into Article 3, that's what you guys wanna do, put it in, and as an individual one, so people can vote that 99,000. If they vote that down, how do we thus pay for the position that we have?
So, the way I understand it, what that essentially would mean is that the operating budget for the general town government would be roughly $2.7 million, and $99,000 of it is not available, essentially. So you only have $2.6 million to fund the general town government budget, and you would therefore have to reconfigure how that budget is allocated to make it work.
So then
Which essentially is the same you would expect the police chief to do, or the school department to do, or anyone else to do, if they came to this body, this group, the FinCom and the Board of Selectmen, and said, we need, whatever the number is, $3.5 million. And at the result of that meeting, we said, well, we can only give you $3.3 million. They then would have to make difficult decisions to figure out how to allocate the funds appropriately to only utilize $3.3 million. It's exactly what the police chief would do, and the superintendent of schools.
So we would have to lay people off, basically.
I don't know. I don't know what the decision would be. And I don't know how the town administrator or the finance director or the Board of Selectmen would choose to spend their general town government, but it's the same decision the police chief would have to make.
So, Mr. LaFine, could we have you weigh in here if you were finished, Bob?
Sure, and Al and I have spoken of this in the past, and I believe I was in a Zoom meeting with the Finance Committee where it was discussed a little more broadly among the membership. My own feeling is that I think people can agree or disagree on the format, what's the best way to handle this under the circumstances in light of whatever the town meeting procedures or the history here. I believe the larger issue here is whether or not the town government leaders look like we're in unison and have our act together. And because of that, I have specifically made the recommendation to the board that we do move this to Article 3 as subsection H with an appropriate explanation as to what that's for. So that's what I would recommend it to you, and I think that should make everybody happy. I think, to your point, Adam, should the town meeting decide to do otherwise with that appropriation, then yes, we will indeed have to then take some other course of action. But I also think that to the extent that the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee are supporting that recommendation, I think it's probably very unlikely that we'll have to pick up those pieces.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Sorry, I apologize.
quite all right.
I make that motion that we move the 99,000 to Article 3.
I'd like another shot at the mic before you do that.
Okay, that's fine.
Well, there is a motion on the floor. We can have discussion after that. Is there a second for the motion? Discussion?
No problem. Thank you. I think that Rick is 100% right, but I think the other way around this is that while we don't want to use free cash to fund a employee position and salary, we certainly could, in the era of transparency for town meeting, we could take, and even though we have succeeded, I assume, in breaking out your salary line from the former town administrator's salary line, so now they are two separate lines, so everybody can see two separate numbers?
In the appendix, correct.
Okay, so that, one could argue that the former town administrator's, who is now the executive consultant's salary, has a sunset. It's a two-year
That's correct.
thing. So now, we could use free cash because we're not funding an ongoing process. So could we, for the sake of mathematics, take $99,000 out of that amount, put it into Rick's, and then take $99,000 out of free cash and put it back in to the former town administrator? We still have not funded an ongoing expense. We have funded one that has a sunset. So everybody's happy. We maintain the way we do things, but we don't set the precedent. That's the whole, I think that's where Adam's coming from. I think that's where my entire committee is coming from. We don't want this coming, because we don't know what's going to happen next year. We don't know how big classrooms are going to have to be. We may need 10 teachers. Who knows? And if all of a sudden we can start, the excuse will be, well, geez, you pulled $99,000 of free cash last year to pay this salary line, so let's just take $1 million out of the capital fund and we'll pay these salary lines. And that would be a terrible thing. It's always the next issue. It's never what's really before us now. It's always what's coming. So that's my comment.
And as you said, the former town administrator's buyout here really isn't technically a salary. It has a sunset.
Right, but he's paid through, Meg and I had a long discussion with this. He is paid through payroll. He's paid every 2 weeks. His health insurance is maintained. So I guess in the eyes of that department, it's a payroll item. But in the real picture of things, it's a 2-year contract.
Correct.
And at the end of the 2-year contract, there is no option for anything. It's 2-year contract, and have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, and I agree. I think it's important for people to know that.
So this will be a little difficult to get through, which is why we initially insisted upon breaking out the 2 numbers, because originally they were all ganged up into one line. Town administrator, and it was a $500,000, $450,000 number. And I figured that, people that aren't as involved as, and we had to dig for it, would look at that number and lose their mind. We're paying this guy this kind of money, but we're not. So we wanted it broken out, and I think that got achieved. So that's one of the first things that Rick was on board with when I first met with him. He said, yeah, absolutely.
I don't think we've disagreed on anything yet, Al.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. We'll find something, don't worry.
So any more discussion on this?
I have a question about, since you brought up the former town administrator and salaries with him, and would it be beneficial if we move his money out of the selectman operating expense and put it into a separate line item that will say for whatever we want to call it? Do we do that?
I think that, I think Meg will tell you that there's somewhat of a technical difficulty there in terms of, municipal finance and chart of accounts.
We can't.
Yeah, it's not.
DOR won't approve it.
Yeah, it's.
Okay.
And the auditors will never go for it.
Yeah, the DOR is going to look at this as a payroll item.
That's right.
Regardless of what the agreement is, the intent.
Can we?
It needs to be somewhere in a payroll item.
So can we put it down to the planning, environmental, and permitting one? Drop it down to that, because he's a consultant. That would cover us in that way. It'll be out of the selectmen's operating budget. It's now with the permitting, because he is a consultant.
He's an executive consultant, Bob. He came out of the TA's office. I think it'd be a case of semantics. It can be its own line item, and I don't disagree with that. And I've had multiple conversations with Meg and you. DOR won't even respond to her question. She spoke with the auditors, and they said it's a really bad idea. It's going to give the appearance that you're trying to hide this. Better it should sit right where it is in plain view with its own explanation. I mean, I don't care what you call it. It doesn't have to have a name. It can be the executive consultant, and it's got its own line item, just so long as it's not tied into Rick's line item, so it doesn't give the appearance that he's making that double amount of money, because that's misleading.
Correct.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
If I may, even if it were part of the planning budget,
Can you use the microphone? Adam, thank you.
even if it were part of the planning budget, it would still be part of the general town government budget.
Right.
So it still sort of all rolls into the same bucket. The issue is essentially that it is an operating cost. It's an ongoing operating cost because it's part of payroll. He's an employee, he's an executive consultant. So regardless of what bucket we put it in or what committee, what department we put it in, it's still an ongoing operating cost regardless of how what slot we put it in. And that was the concern with the financial management policy, is that it is an ongoing operating cost. We know it has a life expectancy, but every contract in town has a life expectancy. So it's really no different than any others. If the superintendent had 2 years left on his contract, we wouldn't consider his salary something other than an operating cost.
But this is not a recurring expense. It does end. It's going to last 2 years, and that's it.
Sure,
So
but...
it's a little different.
Well, yeah, but every contract we have, so if we decided to hire an assistant finance director and then 2 years from now decided not to rehire a assistant finance director, that wouldn't be a recurring cost. But in the interim, we would still consider their payroll an operating cost. And so that was my concern with the financial management policy, that and the part, I think it's like subsection C, that speaks about a full life cycle analysis, cost analysis that's done as part of budget approval. And every other department came in and presented to us their budgets for fiscal year '21. And we went through it line by line to talk to them about their specific needs, their wants, et cetera. That wasn't done in this particular case, but I think under the circumstances, everybody here understands that, some things cannot be forecasted or planned.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, there's a motion made to accept Rick's recommendation, which is, could you repeat that again for us, Rick?
To move the $99,000 from the budget article, which is now Article 4, previously number 5, to Article 3 as, I believe, letter H, and with an appropriate explanation as to what that is for.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Alan, you want to poll
I think
your-
we've already, we would certainly be more than in favor of that, but I'll anybody want to make that motion?
Aye. So through you, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we move the free cash line item from Article 5, Article 4, to Article 3 as part of the allocation of funds from fiscal year free cash.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Okay, so we have 2 unanimous boards.
Yep, 7. 7.
Moving on, did we have an issue with Article 4?
No, that was the budget.
Okay,
I think that's where the 99,000 was.
it was, yes.
The same issue.
So it was the
Okay.
same issue.
All right, Article 6, can you...
We have already voted on Article 6, Madam Chair, at, it's not on here, but Article 6, Community Preservation Committee and Report recommendations. That was a... Thank you. 7-0 vote for us, so it's just,
Okay.
that's easy.
Okay, do I hear a motion from the Select Board?
Make a motion that we approve Article 6 as written.
And this is the Community Preservation Committee report and recommendations. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in...
I guess,
Yes.
is this article just, they have $472,000 in their budget, and this is how much is in each category?
Every year, the 3 categories, they have to contribute 10% of whatever they have into that, yeah. So this is indicating, this is their 10% contribution, although the one for open space seems rather large. And then the administrative expenses is, of course, for administrative expenses. I believe that percentage is allowed to go to 5%.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
sure.
Now, so I just want to make this clear, is that they have the open space, the community housing reserve, and the historic reserve. It appears that 329, that's what they're going to be using to pay for the recurring debt that we have? Is that what that's why it's so high for the open space part of this? The 329?
That would be my understanding.
That's all.
Mr. LaFawn, do you have something else?
I would have to look at the debt schedules.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it could be they're still paying off the coal property, but I don't think so. I think
No.
it might be for something else. Mr. Holmes?
If you don't mind.
Briefly.
Sure. I know this I watched the CPC meeting last week. So the $329,000 consists of the 10% that has to be allocated to that bucket, but also the amount of money that has to go to pay the bond for the King property project. So the difference between the roughly $58,000, $57,000 and the $329 is the money that's added to that bucket to offset, because they have to put 10% into each bucket. There's 70% left over minus admin expenses. The remainder of that they can allocate to any project they want, or any bucket they want. So the majority of that is allocated to open space to fund the King property project. So, and then the 57 and 58 to fund the other 2 buckets as they expect.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Okay.
See how easy this is?
Article 8, I believe you're up, Mr. Jermaine.
We already voted on that, too. That's to remove this. Is that correct? That's my understanding.
Rescind authorized but unexpended debt, correct. Projects that are completed.
That was originally called Article 9,
It's
right?
Article 8 now.
So these are funds that were for the middle high school repairs and the new elementary school. These are
These are amounts that were borrowed.
correct, and then weren't used, and we don't have you as having voted on this?
Right, the Board of Selectmen have not formally voted to approve or to support.
It says we voted 4-0 in favor.
Oh, my mistake.
It's okay.
Yeah, our vote, as Beth said, was 7-0. So
7-0, okay, thank you.
that's it.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chair, if I can, do we
Yes.
have to revote on Article 3 and 4 because they've changed from our original votes?
We can if you want. I don't know that we need to.
I mean, you did vote on Article 3.
So just as a,
Precaution?
yeah,
Go ahead, make the motion.
just as a precaution and a point of clarification, on the March 3rd meeting, we did not vote on Article 3 as it was proposed to be changed tonight, because we were going to break out the $99,000 for free cash for the town administrator line item as a separate article. So when we voted on March 3rd on this specific budget, there were going to be two different articles for the allocation of free cash, and the $99,000 was going to involve oversight by the Board of Selectmen and the FinCom.
Well, 99 was going to be its own article.
It was going to be his own article. So, and that was the vote we took on March 3rd. So we technically have not taken a vote on the allocation of the free cash article with the $99,000 included as part of that article.
Okay, so is that a motion to do so?
Make the motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Thank God. All those in favor? Opposed?
No.
6-1.
Actually, I didn't say I'll be. I'm in.
Yeah. I'm a no.
Four to 3. Still passes. You want to redo 4? Because they pulled it out of there?
Again, as a point of clarification, I believe the article that we voted on March 3rd was Article 5, and it didn't include the $99,000 as part of that article. So what now remains as a result of tonight's vote to change that article was what we did vote on March 3rd. I don't think we need to.
Yeah, I don't think we do either.
You can do it if you want to codify it.
But it was Article 5, now it's Article 4.
So I make a motion to approve Article 4 as
With the-
modified as a result of tonight's modification.
That's better.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve Article 4 with the modifications as approved tonight. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's 7-0?
Yes.
Okay. Just checking. Giving us both a run for our money tonight, Sarah.
Okay.
Okay, now we take a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn. Second.
Motion made.
One second, before you adjourn, wait. Can I just say one thing?
Yes.
I hope this doesn't happen again, that we're not on the same page, all right? And really, we have to work together to know what's going on, and I apologize.
No.
As one of the selectmen, so-
This is
I do.
not, please, don't misunderstand. This is not the selectmen. FinCom is not upset with the select board. The select board should not be upset with FinCom. We're supposed to keep an eye on this stuff. Everything got changed around. No one expected this virus. No one expected to live our lives the last 3 months the way we have. This is so nice to be back with people, not looking at a computer screen. Rick's been very helpful. The board's been excellent. This was just something that we discussed this at 2 different meetings, and then a couple of times Adam and I on the phone. And the biggest thing is that we didn't want to give the impression that we were not being transparent.
I
This
agree.
town deserves to know everything. And that's where we stand, and I think that's where this board stands. And I'm pretty sure that that's where Rick stands. So I'd rather have townspeople asking questions, and the worst thing that can ever happen is when a resident comes up to you and says, hey, what's this $99,000 in free cash? And you look at them and say, I have no idea what you're talking about. What do you mean? Then they look and they say, well, aren't you on the finance committee? Aren't you supposed to know this stuff? So this is just, we wanted to get on the same page. I'm thrilled that we're able to do this tonight and we can all work together with this. I certainly see a very good year coming up. I think we're going to have some challenges. I think it's going to be a year where we're all going to have to really work together.
Thank
But
you.
I think we'll make it. Now there's a motion and a second to adjourn.
If I may, and I'll be brief, I don't think I need much. Bob, thank you for noting that and mentioning that tonight. I appreciate that.
That's too bad you didn't have a mic. Because people at home would like to
Okay.
hear what you just said.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So on the record. I don't like they want to go home.
Sure. You can't see my name tag, so Patrick Keneally, Finance Committee, but Bob, thank you for mentioning that. It wasn't ideal, sort of how everything got disrupted. I don't think it was completely because of the virus, but I think it is important, right? We're a committee of checks and balances. We like to be somewhat in the know as best we can. You guys obviously much in the know more than that, but I don't think it was ideal, but I appreciate you acknowledging the fact that we can work better together going forward, and I look forward to doing so.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll try this again. So motion made and seconded to adjourn. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much for
Thank
your
you, Mr.
patience and your
Chair.
indulgence.
Thank you, Finance Committee.
And I hesitate to say, Madam Chair, but my door's always open, my phone's always on the hook, so feel free to give me a call.
Yeah.
I know you do.
No, thank you for that, Rick.
Alan probably knows where I live.
I do. I'll be by there tomorrow.
Okay, we are at the point on the agenda where we have a discussion and possible vote to remove from the warrant article numbers 9 and 10.
I make a motion that we remove these till the fall town meeting.
And just for the public, I'm going to say that they are the two articles that concern the Carver, Marion, Wareham Regional Refuse Disposal District and its dismantling. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Do we have discussion?
So, right now with the district, it's, we really don't know all the information to go forward. If Wareham, how Wareham's going to vote, if they vote to reject these same articles that they have on their town meeting, but that won't be until the fall. They've decided to wait till the fall to do that. So if they do it, then it's all for nothing. Whatever Carver votes doesn't matter because they're going to overrule us. And then it's going to force the district back to negotiations with Marion, which we should have been negotiating with Marion anyways, to them getting out of the district. The focus was shifted from negotiating with Marion out of the district, and it got focused more on dismantling the district. I'm opposed to that, but I think we should wait to find out where Wareham sits on this issue and how they vote. It's really important that if we don't have a district for trash business within the town, so we can have our residents go to a transfer station and dump their trash out, they have to go toward an individual trash hauler. I went to a meeting last week, and Wareham invited me and Rick, and we listened to Republic and also Waste Management. Rick ended up having to leave early, and then I had to leave early from the Waste Management to go to work, but one of the big things that really hit me was if the town should ever feel like they want to offer trash hauling for all of the residents in town as a preferred hauler, it would take 9 months to prepare for that company to come in here and do that. We don't have 9 months. And the last known numbers that we have for $50 a sticker was 1,800 residents picked up stickers, all right, for the transfer station and possibly use it for the ponds. So that's a lot of people to find from now until December, to find another trash hauler in here and to take their trash away for 1, 2, or 3, or how many we have in our town. So I think we need to work with Marion to find a solution for them to get out. We haven't done that as of yet, but we're going to have to focus toward that too. But we need to know where we're at. One of the other things is that if we bring these forward and we vote in favor, and if Wareham votes in favor too, then it will be, we have to get rid of all the land, all the equipment, and that's all going to, money will be split a third, a third, a third. Right now, real estate isn't the best market for commercial in that area, so we may end up not getting as much as we could. But if we stayed within the district, that land stays within the district, and Carver being part of the district, if something should happen, we keep it open for a couple of years and it's doing well, great. If it's not, then we have an opportunity to sell. Well, maybe we can make more money in the next couple of years, all right, for that land if we try to sell it then it's only split between 2 towns instead of split between 3 now at a lower rate. So, but that's the real estate market, because that's where our money is the real estate in Rochester. So my feeling is we need to put these off till fall, see where Wareham sits on voting on this, and then lo and behold, and if they vote in favor of it, then pretty much we have to vote in favor of it too. But if they vote against it, then we can go to get us to 2, and hopefully we'll have an agreement with Marion to get out, and we keep the district open, and we offer the service to our residents in the future. And like I said, I've always said this, if it doesn't work out, we keep it up and running. If it doesn't work out in 2 years, then we need to get out. We can't put it on the taxpayers to have a North Carver water issue where the taxpayers are shelling out a couple $100,000 a year to go ahead, and the taxpayers don't deserve that. And that's my feeling. So I think putting this off now puts us in a better position. Thank you.
And I would agree. First of all, thanks, Bob, for the education, introductions over the last couple of weeks. But I think that to the extent that this is put off, I think it helps the relationship between Wareham and Carver, to the extent that, I mean, Marion's leaving. That's not even a question. But to the extent that we're, I don't want to say in lockstep, but working in cooperation with Wareham, I think right now is clearly in all of our best interests.
Yeah.
And I think moving this back helps facilitate that.
And I just want to add that for those who are unaware, the reason, one of the other reasons to wait to hear what Wareham does is because since the district was formed by the 3 towns, the 3 towns have to decide to dissolve the district. It doesn't take just 1 town, it has to take...
2/3.
2/3. 2/3?
Yes.
Okay. Where did you see that?
In the agreement.
What's that?
That's what I believe I saw in the agreement.
Oh, okay.
It takes 2/3.
Okay.
We'll review that again, though.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I thought all 3 have to vote in favor of it too. If one doesn't, then it's null and void.
That
So
was my understanding.
That's the agreement that
But we might be...
we're going through.
But I also agree that we need that time. I mean, I know that you, Bob, have been, and now hopefully Rick, are working to come up with some sort of municipal agreement between Carver and Wareham and maybe Rochester.
Well, we have to work with Wareham first, see where we're at. I mean, at first I thought the municipal agreement would be a good thing for us, but in order for a municipal agreement, we'd have to dissolve the district and then form the municipal agreement, and then we'd have to buy the land from the district. So think about that, is that, and the 3 price tags we got one assessment of $250,000, another one was $525,000, I think, and the other one was $850,000. Well, you know where Marion's going to sit. They're going to say, hey, we want $850,000, and then we're going to have to do a third of that. Well, if it's still in the district, we don't have to do any of that. We don't have to pay for anything, and there'll be money in the till after we get, if Marion leaves and we get them out, then there's money in the till to do upgrades and to help for the future year.
Keep the infrastructure going, right.
So,
I just had a quick question.
Yes, Jim.
When is the Wareham town meeting?
I think it's in,
I think it's the end of August.
I think it's August.
that's what I want to say too, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So there has been a motion and a second to remove from the warrant Articles 9 and 10. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous. Mr. LaFawn, would you want to give us a quick rundown on removing Article 16, the floodplain bylaw?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. That was for both articles? That's what we voted on? I just want to make sure we voted both articles.
That was my understanding, that the
Okay.
motion was for both. Mhm.
All right.
I mean, you made the
I
motion.
made the motion, but I mean, I just want to make sure that we did
Okay.
do
Right.
both articles, so it doesn't go back to town meeting and say, oh, wait a second.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
what you got, Elaine. Okay.
I did, okay.
Excellent. It's always good to check. So if you could just give us a quick rundown on the floodplain bylaw, Article 16, and the Wenham Shores Conservation Restriction, removing these, and my understanding is hopefully having them back for a future town meeting, but...
Floodplain bylaw is recommended for removal, not just through common sense, but also by town council, because the federal government has rescinded its order to have floodplain bylaw and flood mapping information up to date by mid-June. I'm sorry, mid-July. I think it was July 23rd.
So when do they need to be up to date?
There's no follow-up from the Fed right now. It's just rescinding their current order.
So they're suggesting we totally rescind floodplain bylaws?
No, not to go forward right now with updating our plans.
Okay, so the ones we currently have stay in place? Okay.
I'll make a motion that we put off Article 16.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion, further discussion?
I'd say at some point, we can presume that there'll be a new order in place that we'll have to comply with.
Okay.
But we don't know when that'll be yet.
I misspoke, thinking they were going on the next town meeting. Thank you for that, Rick. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Article 17, the Wenham Shores Conservation Restriction.
Yes, the lead proponent of that has asked that it be removed at this point, and with the intent of having it on a fall town meeting.
Okay.
The rationale is because the ultimate end game here is to have the land transferred to Fish and Game,
Correct.
and apparently the conversations have not been finalized and settled with Fish and Game yet. So we would hope that that would be the case, so it would be ready for a fall town meeting.
And I think they've definitely had the conversation, Rick, if I can just slightly make a correction. I think Fish and Game is very interested in holding the conservation restriction on it. They said so in a letter to the board. They're just working on the conservation restriction and with limited, working hours and so on. So,
I'll make that motion that we put this one off until the next town meeting.
is there a second? Okay, all in favor? Oh, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that's unanimous too. Next item is discussion and possible vote on reducing the quorum for annual town meeting. And I know, Rick, in your memo to us, you recommended that because our quorum is so low to start with, at 75, that there's no real reason for us to...
There's also a process that we would have to go through. The town would, basically, the Board of Selectmen tonight would have to schedule a meeting at least 7 days out so that you could vote, to vote to consider lowering the quorum. So you've got a 7-day window, then another window where you have to put that on file with the town clerk. Basically, it's going to take probably about 2 weeks anyway to be able to lower the quorum. It has to be done in consideration, in conjunction with the town moderator.
Right.
We did meet with the town moderator last week, and his thoughts were the same. A fairly modest quorum requirement. On the other hand, I think to Mark's concern, we can't ignore the fact that this is out there. Every city and town, every town in the region is discussing this or has discussed this. So for the purposes of putting it out to the public, so people aren't, asking these questions, or why did you, why didn't you? It's a process, it's not simply a decision, and that process takes time. And the fact that the governor only signed this bill a week ago Friday makes you wonder if it's still relevant for most towns.
Right. Madam Chair?
Yes.
I think that a quorum of 75 is reasonable, even in these COVID-19 times, and I would be against reducing the quorum, so.
Okay.
Is that a motion?
Well, I don't know if we need to, do we need to take a vote on
I
this?
wouldn't think I think you need to take a proactive vote if you wanted to go forward with a hearing to consider this.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm against lowering it, but how many people can we put into the, I know we had talked about that before, in the auditorium,
126, according to Dave Siedentalk.
so 126.
Social distancing.
Using social distancing, and if more people show up, then we have to do the alternate of finding either another venue, or I know some towns have went out to the football field. I don't know. I don't know. We got a new football field. I don't know about having chairs out there on those football fields, and if those do damage. But
Looking at having another site, perhaps in the cafeteria.
Or the gym?
Okay. As an overflow. Okay.
You're also going to have a site for out-of-town folks as well, right? Because they're not going to be in the main auditorium, correct?
So with the out-of-town folks, they just need a video, a TV. That's all they need, is a TV monitor that is being run and streamed on it. They can't make any, unless they get approval of town meeting to come out and speak, but, I mean...
And they can't vote.
They can't vote on it, so putting them in a separate room or whatnot, depending on the size, having that alternate place, so, thank you.
Can I just ask a question?
Certainly.
Why was this on the agenda for tonight? Was there an issue that was brought up that?
I think Rick has sort of...
Mark and I discussed it, Mark brought it to my attention, that we should at least discuss it, because as I mentioned, if I don't read the newspapers that often, but it is an issue that's been brought up in communities all around us and throughout the state. So, and again, I don't want to speak for you, Mark, but it just seemed like at least discussing it, why, if we're going to, or why not, just as a matter of information.
So just quickly, so this was a vote that I think a bill that the governor, it had been kicking around up in Boston for a while, but I think, was it last Friday he signed it, or the Friday before? It was very recently.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was appropriate that the board acknowledge it and take action on it, that's all. That's why I asked for it to be put on the
I just
agenda.
know someone brought it to the board's attention that we should
No.
look into this.
No.
No, and I would
Okay.
say, I think, not to put words in your mouth, Mark, but I think there was some conversation, you know how rumors get out there on the street that somehow, cities and towns, I keep saying cities, but towns could go as low as, 10% of their quorum. Initially, the conversation, I think that it began at the legislature, wasn't a local option. It was a permission given by the legislature. That's not the case. But I think it was reasonable for people to be concerned about that. So to think that, 7.5 people could walk into town meeting in Carver and act as the legislative branch of government, that would be concerning for people who didn't necessarily know the facts.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially for that half person.
Okay, so you don't feel there's a need to vote on this at all? Okay. Approval of outdoor dining of all liquor licenses contingent upon approval/inspection of police, fire, and Board of Health. Is this something you think we need to vote on?
Yes.
Okay.
You would have to vote on this to give permission. I think most people are aware of this issue, the phased rollout of reopening, the economy, so to speak, and allowing for outdoor seating at restaurants. Of course, these are restaurants that specifically have a liquor license from the board, so it's really in your hands as to whether or not you want to allow that. As you can see, as it's posed here, it would require the approval of your public safety officers as well as your health department. So this isn't something that the Board of Selectmen just gives carte blanche to these establishments to do as they wish. It has to be done in conformity with the public safety departments.
And Madam Chair, if I could just say, I think it's
Yes, you
important.
may.
I think it's important that we approve this. I think it's important that we do everything we can to help our Carver businesses through this difficult time. So I would make a motion that we approve this.
Second that.
Is there any further discussion?
Just a clarification, so this is only for restaurant or dining establishments that have liquor licenses? If they don't have a liquor license, they can't?
These are the establishments in town who are not predominantly takeout. Feel free to jump in, Elaine.
Yes, I believe there's no other food establishment that could serve outside besides maybe Dee's Omelet. They haven't expressed any interest in that. So everyone else is a convenience store.
They don't hold a liquor license.
I'm sorry, could you two speak up? I can't really hear you very well. Could you say it again, Elaine? I didn't really hear you.
So those are all the liquor licensees are all the restaurants in town with the exception of Dee's Omelet.
Okay.
Is the only restaurant that has not expressed interest.
Okay.
All the other restaurants have expressed interest in the outdoor dining. We have not received applications for them all, so we put them all on here in the event to just streamline everything.
Yep.
That was Mr. Townsend's thought, rather than have the board have to act on individual applications, particularly between meetings. You know, a week or two could make a big difference to an establishment.
Yep.
Mark suggested that we put them all on here, and again, these are all subject to other approvals, but especially because they're your alcohol licenses, you have to specifically make that decision.
And it's also subject to payment of taxes.
They wouldn't have their license already if that were the case.
Right.
So.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to approve all outdoor dining of all liquor licenses contingent upon the approval and inspection of the police, fire, and the Board of Health. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Select Board 2020 reappointments attached somewhere here. Mr. LaFawn, did we get clarification on the last one on the list?
The South Shore Community Action Council. The clarification is that Bernadette Hemingway is the citizen representative.
Community.
I'm sorry, community representative. I was educated by you earlier that there's actually 3 representatives from the town. One is the appointee from the Board of Selectmen, another one is the community representative, and a third is the low-income representative.
Right.
They have to be low-income, but they represent that particular constituency. Sarah holds the Board of Selectmen's seat, appointee, and what is being, Bernadette Hemingway is the community representative, and she has agreed that she wishes to continue in that role.
Okay.
Her appointment would be for, I believe, a 3-year appointment in that role.
Excellent. Okay.
So Bernadette has been contacted, as all the applicants or reappointment candidates have all been contacted and agreed that they wish to continue.
Just give me 1 minute. I want to find that list here.
It's all the way down toward the...
Yeah, it's way...
All the
It's
way
in the
down?
middle, it's in the middle.
It's in the middle?
21,
Yeah.
21.
So I have a question,
Yes, Bob.
Mr. Chairman. Can, on the Ag Committee, we have a cross out here of 1, but then it says request from chair attached, not reappoint. But you spoke that she wants to be appointed. Can you...
Yes, that would be from Joe Nix, who had that request. Yeah, the individual here, I believe, I'm sorry, They're in front of me. She has been contacted, and she has agreed that she would like to be reappointed. Joe's concern was attendance. I did point out to him and email him the copy of our bylaws with regard to the notice of the committee chair to the town clerk if somebody has missed 3 consecutive meetings. He's aware of that. In light of the fact that I'm sorry, I need my glasses here. This isn't as easy as it used to be. I'm sorry, Ms. Hamilton. She, again, he's aware now, I've made him aware that she wishes to be reappointed. He's also aware of the bylaw, that if there is a concern about her attendance, that there is recourse. So in light of that, he doesn't have any objections.
Now, can we modify these terms, the 3-year terms, within this time, or are these set in stone for all of these positions?
I'm not sure, Bob, if that particular committee is contained within the bylaws. Are you aware of that?
Also, I have a question as to basically how much advertising, so to speak, was done. Just because someone's term is up doesn't necessarily mean it shouldn't be opened up to the public as well. And I realize they're posted, but I'm just curious. Conservation Commission, for example, the Regional Refuse Disposal District, just to name a couple.
So, while you're looking at that, I can, if I could, please.
Yes, Bob.
With the Carver, Marion, Wareham Regional Refuse Disposal District, I think I remember reading in our prior bylaws that we have, is that they're staggered out. So you don't have, you have 3 members, and they're staggered out. 1 year, next year, and third one there. But these are 2 positions that are sidestep with both 3-year terms, and
It does call for a 3-year term.
it does.
Right. Initially, they're staggered, as one would think, when you begin a commission. It's 9 members and 3 per year, staggered terms.
Okay, all right. My thought process on that was, at least with the Ag Committee, is if there's an issue with attendance of meetings or whatnot, to go ahead and drop down from a 3-year to a 1-year and see how it goes, and then come back and reappoint at that point. But if we're stuck with the 3 years, we're stuck with the 3 years. But to go on to the district, I'm almost sure it's supposed to be staggered, the appointees.
Yeah, refuse district.
I think, from the initial appointment? I don't know, we don't have in our book how this was created, or, because I think it was an agreement, it wasn't through town meeting, you know what I'm saying?
I assume it's in the district agreement, so
Right.
I have to look at that, Bob, before, we can certainly put this one off until the next meeting if you desire.
I'd like to put this one off until the next.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
If these appointments all expire at the end of June, can we put them off? Will that leave us without a representative?
Mr. LaFawn?
Well, we could, I don't know if your history is to post a meeting, before town meeting. That's really up to you. That way, if you wanted to deal with some ministerial acts, that would be your option.
We could do that.
That's a concern. But again, I don't know what your history is, if that's something you're comfortable with, not comfortable with.
That's what we used to do. Would that be enough time for you, Bob?
Oh, yeah. I'll send a message now.
Just a question.
Yes, Jim.
Bob, do those two terms, they both ended this year that you know of?
Well, that's what it looks like here, that we're revoting them both, and I don't know if this goes back to how long they've actually been on the board, if it goes back to when all the issues with the prior running of it, and they both got appointed at the same time that way, and now it's 3 years later, and they're both getting appointed the same. They should have been staggered, and that's my opinion, is you
Someone
want...
might have filled in if it was an open position.
I'm sorry?
Someone might have filled in if there was an open position. These two gentlemen might have filled in if there was, to fill in for the rest of the position. I know, like we did on the
Yeah.
planning board.
Right,
Right.
The position opened up.
right.
Took that, and then after 2 years, they had to rerun, so I wonder if maybe that was...
And I guess I really would like to know just how much these upcoming reappointments and therefore technically openings were advertised.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have a good answer for that. Rick?
I know that, well, actually, I don't know for sure, but I know that they're on the website. I don't know historically if positions that are already filled and people are seeking reappointment, are those tend to be out there too, Elaine, or advertised as open? Or what's the history with regard?
So we don't put them out there as open, but we had this discussion before where we have updated our website to put everyone's terms on there. So every single committee is out there listed with their terms. So if they are interested, then we can take their application and hold it till the reappointment process comes. We spoke about earlier that the process, the actual instructions, we're still working on. They're not posted on the website yet because we're trying to make it.
Well, again, some of it is how do you wish to proceed in a way that, encourages participation without discouraging participation. You don't want to send a message to people who are already giving their time and effort that we may not want you. On the other hand, so it's really a matter of what tone you want to set. We can certainly help you do that, but
What's the wish of the board here?
Well, Madam Chairman, I guess I would, all these, I think a list of every appointed position in the town is on the select board page on the website, so, and with all the terms there. So folks can see them anytime they want. Now, perhaps we could have some wording somewhere on the website. I'm just thinking off the cuff here, that if someone's interested in applying for a board, we could refer them to that link where they could see what committees are available and when terms expire. So if they were interested, they could contact the town administrator's office and fill out an application. Maybe that's a
That's
solution.
actually what I'd like to see. I mean, it used to be that we actually announced these at the meeting, but that went by the wayside. And I think it would just be good to announce, these such and such terms for such and such committees are coming up, the end of term, if anyone's interested. And I think if you do it for all the boards and committees, it's not offensive. You're not, targeting any one person.
I'm very confident Elaine can handle that.
I'm sure she could. So for this particular reappointment, does the board want to wait until the night of town meeting? Was that your thought, Bob? So you could get some clarification on the length of terms?
One of the, just looking at the article here that you've removed, which has an updated agreement. Well, the one in here basically calls for three members, 3-year terms. I don't know how different this is. I didn't create this article.
Right.
As you know, it's many, many pages. I don't know how different that is from the agreement that it proposes to replace. So I wouldn't hang my hat on the fact that what's in this article represents the way it is today, so.
I agree.
Because I don't know what changes were made.
Yeah.
To the existing.
The agreement that we have put off, that's 3 members for the district. 1 from Carver, 1 from Marion, and 1 from Wareham. And then there would be the 3 town administrators would have a subcommittee, but there would only be 3 members, so it would only be 1 for the town. And that's the way it's written there. But I just thought that they were all supposed to be staggered from reading a prior one, so.
So we need to read the current agreement. And bad information is,
Yeah, I don't,
Madam Chairman, just a point of clarification. I have a list of the appointed committees in front of me, and for that particular, the Carver, Marion, Wareham Regional Refuge District, it does list all as 3-year terms and all expiring in 2020, so.
Okay.
Unless that's.
So what is the wish of the board? Shall we vote on these appointments except for that one so that we can get some clarification on the terms? Or should we put off the reappointments until a brief meeting before the town meeting?
I make a motion that we approve all except for the Carver, Marion, Wareham Regional Refuse Disposal District until we get some clarification on that one.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Let's have it. Mr. Town Administrator, you are up.
a few things. I won't take too much of your time this evening. As you probably know, this past Monday, we did reopen Town Hall to the public. As we predicted, there wasn't a tremendous amount of foot traffic. That being said, those, I'm sure, as you've walked around, and I know Sarah's going to double check what I'm saying right now, we do have a floor pattern for visitors to come and leave with minimal contact. You know, masks are required for, not just for visitors, but for employees who are in public hallways, public areas. And we had intended to have somebody in the lobby as a greeter, making sure that people were complying with safety regulations, but it really never became an issue, primarily because, once again, there really wasn't a lot of foot traffic. Should that change as time goes on, we'll reconsider that. I think the public has been very, very cooperative. I think, let's face it, it's kind of the way of the world right now. People walk into a town hall, they have no different than walking into Cumberland Farms at this point. People understand. So it's been very smooth. We have had some staff we brought back from furlough to help the public. We're just going to continue to monitor this on a daily and weekly basis. And any ideas that people have, you know, from the staff, where we've encouraged them to bring them to our attention. As I mentioned here, we do have to reinforce the need for employees to make sure they're wearing masks in public areas. Sometimes it gets casual because people spend so much time here. The library, and I have attached a memo from our library director. I had asked her for some insight on what the library's plans are for reopening, and if you don't mind, I'll just read it. The library began to offer curbside pickup on June 9th, when we put out almost 50 bags for patrons to pick up. This service is currently available on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And we have been asked to provide evening hours for this as well, and they'll be exploring that option. Books that are returned are being quarantined for 72 hours. Library director has met with our Dave Seidentop, who's our facilities operations management department head. And they are going to be installing plexiglass at the circulation desk, librarian's desk, and reference desk. And that hasn't happened yet, but within the next 2 weeks, that's expected to happen. So as of right now, they're more or less following Governor Baker's orders and the state's lead with regard to how to deal with checkouts, with traffic in the library. And also attached, I think that's enough, is the regulations from the state for libraries. So that's really for your perusal. I'm not going to go through that. I think the most important thing for people to know is that the library is very much considering how they're going to be able to open up and when, and there is some service that is available right now.
Rick, if I could just interrupt, but they're not offering programs per se, story hours and
That is
book clubs and...
That is
yeah.
correct,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
And if there's any other questions, anything you want me to pass on, or questions you'd like to have answered, like I said, I don't want to get into that too deeply. The next item, I don't know that there's any need to talk about this any further with regard to the refuse district, only to maybe just clarify a little bit that both me personally and with Bob and Wareham officials, I've been doing some homework, speaking to officials in Marion, as well as Wareham, aside from Bob. As I say, I don't really want to beat that up again. I think we're working cooperatively with Wareham, and there seems to be a lot of respect among the parties here. So hopefully we'll keep that going. I do have a contact set up with the town administrator in Wareham tomorrow, who apparently it's on the street that the town was considering moving these articles off to another date. So it has gotten some attention. Whether that's good or bad, I'm not sure, but I tend to think it's positive. The so-called CARES Act, that is the funding that is essentially pass-through funding from the federal government to help us with COVID-19 response. The county has approximately $90 million to distribute. How they choose to distribute that is up to them. However, the way they've chosen to do it is not through any formula funding, but more on an application basis. One piece of that would be reimbursement for expenses that are tied directly to dealing with the pandemic. And another area of potential funding is dealing with future events, of similar events. For the purposes of Carver, we've currently only identified about $12,000 of direct expense. There are other costs that the school is likely going to incur that's going to add to that, but probably not substantially. What we're hoping to do, what we're going to do by June 26th, is we will be filing an application with the county to help us prepare for the next, I hate to say the next pandemic per se, but this is really the next emergency management event that could cause separation from the work environment. And what we're doing in conjunction with the schools is we're going to be requesting, workbooks, upgraded networking system so that people can work more effectively from home, laptops for certain officials, and we're probably looking at we're talking about upwards of 200 Chromebooks, et cetera, for schools. We're talking about a lot of 30 plus laptops. These are things that are being funded by the county. You obviously have to make your case. There are some towns that have already received funds. They've applied in earlier rounds. Our town, we have till June 26th in this particular round of funding. Haven't put the numbers together yet, but we're talking about a significant capital cost that would actually take some things off our capital plan going into FY 2022. So once we have that package put together and the cost associated, we'll let you pass that along to you.
Mr. LaFond, if I may, so does that mean that any reimbursements we want to get through the CARES Act have to be into Plymouth County by June 26th?
No, there will be later rounds of funding, but that's a good point, because a lot of the costs simply are in the process of being incurred, and some of the cost already incurred, there are invoices to come in, so the timing is not such that everything has to be in by the 26th.
So is the $90 million divided up into different portions or rounds?
No, not specifically, no.
So I guess one of the questions I had on that funding is I have heard some discussions, I think I've read so many things on the COVID-19, different acts coming down from Boston, that it's tough to keep track of them all. But I thought under the school reopening plan that I saw, one of the things they were talking about were smaller class sizes that were going to be required. If that was the case, and the school had additional expenses because of that, is that something we could recover through the CARES Act?
As of right now, that is not an expense that is allowed by, I would say the county, but the provisions of the act, which is really a statewide program. That doesn't mean it won't change, but as of right now, that is not a cost that you can seek, not reimbursement, but prospective funding for.
Okay.
But as I said, that could change.
Okay, thank you.
And, I'm sorry, I got a little off track there. I think I've said enough about that.
Okay.
The one other thing that I just want to mention quickly is the police station. I'm not going to give you the, to the extent that I have in here, an update. I think you can all see the steel going up. I think obviously Bill Harriman is the person to give an update, bring in for an update. But what he has suggested, and I think he suggested it to you, Mark, is that it may be a good idea for the selectmen to meet at some point someday at the site with Bill so that he can explain exactly what, we're looking at out there. It's one thing to see it on a plan. It's another thing to actually envision how this is going to work. I know when I first had that experience, I have, one of my skills is not looking at maps and understanding what I'm seeing exactly, so it's really good to be on site to get a good feel for it. So that's what he suggested. The only piece that I'll bring up is that, as I think you're all aware, that I use the word underfunded maybe by about the project by about $1.2 million. But keeping in mind that between the technology updates, communications that are on the capital plan, as well as the townwide communication system that's about $600,000 on the warrant. There's close to $1 million that's on the town meeting warrant and free cash that it really adds up to that $1.2 million. So I wouldn't be overly concerned if you hear that we're underfunded. Some of these costs that may not seem like they're directly related, they are directly related, whether it's communications or whether it's the well system out here, alarm systems. They're all related to and contribute to the funding necessary for the building. But my main point is, if you'd like to, I can work with Bill Harriman to, probably after town meeting, I suspect would be a good time to have the board members see if we can get together out there. Obviously, we'd have to post a meeting, but certainly wouldn't have any issues with social distancing.
Okay, great, thank you, Rick. Minutes, licenses, and topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance of the meeting. Minutes of April 15th, 2020.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. So,
We were not here.
excuse me?
We were not here.
Correct. So Elaine, on page 2 of the April 15th, and I'm sorry I didn't get this to you earlier, but where it says vote on the interim town administrator's contract, and then it says vote 4-1 in favor, there was also a brief period where Mr. Townsend, acting in his position at the time as chair, asked for the board to consider re-voting so that we would have a unanimous support. And then Mr. Belbin asked that Brad Brothers be asked, I guess is the best term, to learn the ropes from our town administrator. While we couldn't tell the interim to do that, it was discussed that hopefully that would happen. And then the board took a revote, and it was 5-0. So I think that should probably be in there. And then on the very last page, really minor thing, but under the community announcements where it says Hewens Electricity Aggregation, it's technically called the Community Electricity Aggregation. So those are my only changes for that day. Any other discussion? Can we amend the vote to be as amended?
I make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous to approve the April 15th, 2020 minutes as amended.
If I could just point out.
Yes.
I have contacted via email Mr. Jenkins to remind him or refresh his memory with regard to what he agreed to do for the board in terms of putting together some executive session minutes from the dates that in question. And that was in Mark's request. I did that. So.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yep. Okay, the minutes of May 5th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, I have one discussion point here. On the first page, right up at the top, after the motion by Dunham to forego having a vice chair until the next election, since there was no second, there was no vote. It says it was voted 5-0, but there was actually no vote taken because the motion failed. And then down at the bottom of the first page where it says motion by Dunham to move town election to June 5th, second by Clark. I don't see a vote taken there, but I recall that it was 4-1 because I was the one. And I think those are my only amendments. Any other discussion? Okay, would you mind amending that to approve it as amended?
Yeah, motion to approve as amended.
Mm-hmm.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed. And we have 2 abstentions over there for this meeting and the April 15th meeting. Then we have the May 8th meeting. And I have no amendments, so I'll take a motion to approve.
Make that motion to approve. Maybe.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. The minutes of May,
May 19th. I make that motion, we approve as written.
Second.
I have one amendment and one question. On the first page where we're talking about the Eagle Scout project, it says that Hugh and say the land is under the care and custody of the Historic Commission. What I actually said was it's under the care and custody of the Conservation Commission. It's in a historic district, but it's under the care and custody of the Conservation Commission. And then on the 4th page, I just have a question. So let's see. Under the line, it says Clark rescinded his motion, and then rescinding Article number 9, motion to approve by Belbin. Wasn't that withdrawing, or was it rescinding?
Rescinding article.
It was? Okay, I'll take your word for it. And the last is on the next page. Hewins asked if there would be an article on the annual town meeting warrant to have the transfer of funds for the Conservation Trust Fund voted on by town meeting. And I actually didn't say that I'd like to see that. What I said was that that's the only way it can be done, because that's the way it was set up by town meeting. And that's it for that one. So could we have unless there's objections, can we have a motion to approve as amended?
I'll make a motion to approve as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. Okay.
June 2nd.
June 2nd.
Make a motion we approve as written.
Second.
Okay. Seems petty, but I don't think it is. So on page 3 at the very top, where we're talking about the FEMA floodplain bylaw, Hewins doesn't believe that there's one already there. Hewins says there is one already there. I know because I helped to write it. So that's my only change.
Make a motion that we approve as modified by the
Second.
chairwoman.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Okay. Request for a triathlon, Pilgrim Man Triathlon, 9/19/2020, just the bike portion.
I make a motion, we approve with all contingencies that we normally do for an event like this, with the police and the fire and EMS.
Okay, is there a second?
A second.
Any discussion? We did hear from the chief earlier, the police chief at any rate, and he has rerouted the route a little bit, and it sounds like he's okay with it.
There's a map in here, it looks good.
Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Okay, the next meeting dates for us, our annual town meeting on June 29th, and then the very brief meeting before that to address the appointments that Bob was for the district, right?
Very brief.
And then July 7th and August 4th. So, community announcements. Mr. Belvin.
I have none, thank you.
Oh, okay. Mr. Townsend.
Thank you. I just want to recognize the town clerk and her staff and all the election workers for the job they did handling that election with the COVID-19 circumstances. I've read in the newspaper that there have been some difficulties in some other towns, but ours seemed to run like clockwork, and I just think the planning they did and the way they executed it was excellent, so I just want to commend them. Thank you.
Ms. Bogart?
I will echo his sentiments and then thank you and everyone else who has welcomed me to the board so graciously. I look forward to this immensely.
Thank you. Mr. Hoffman?
I agree with Jen. Appreciate that welcome from everybody and looking forward to working with everyone. Also, to echo Mark's statements about the town clerk and earlier with the police chief with the rally. I thought it was great. I mean, you hear so much bad things going on. Everybody was kind of a little bit nervous, but they all did a great job, all of the chiefs. So I think we have a lot to be proud of.
Yeah, for sure. So,
And I have one thing when the time is appropriate from the...
why don't you go, and then I'll go.
This just in, so I would have already had this out here for you. But from the treasurer collector, she would like to remind everyone that the FY20 real estate and personal property tax bills were due on May 1, but the board did vote, that's this board, that the collector can waive interest on any bill that has come due since March 10th if they are paid in full by June 30th and an affidavit of financial hardship is submitted with payment. For information, you can contact the treasurer collector's webpage and contact the office at 508-866-3434. I know that's a lot to take in, so I would always direct people to the webpage to decipher what I just said or call the office.
Thank you.
Sarah, I'm sorry.
Yes,
I apologize. I forgot to say welcome, both of you guys, to the select board. I should have put that right out there, but welcome.
Thank you. And I didn't say anything either, but I was saving it for the end. I'm thrilled that you're both here. I hope you are. So welcome. I think it's going to be a good tenure. I also want to remind the voters that the annual town meeting is scheduled for Monday, June 26th, and that's at 7, Rick?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock p.m.
I believe it's the 29th.
29th.
I mean 29th. I have it written right here. I don't know what I'm thinking. I'm thinking Saturday.
You only asked me the time.
That's right. No, you're right. Thank you, Jen. It is the 29th. And as Mark pointed out, if it goes as well as the election did and as smoothly, I think it'll be a very safe and very good gathering. I know there are people who are anxious about that, but I do think we're in capable hands. The town clerk and the facilities manager and the school personnel are working on that, I know. So I just want voters to remember, and the voting out, town meeting is at 7 p.m. This is not the voting hours. So we hope that as many people can come as possible. I also wanted to thank Bernadette Hemingway, who we just reappointed to the South Shore Community Action Council as a community representative. Bernadette is sort of an unsung hero in this community. She was a kindergarten teacher for many, many years. I'm not sure that was in this town per se, but she was a kindergarten teacher. And she was our town clerk also for many, many years, and probably taught all the subsequent ones after her for quite some time. She was also a member of the select board, and she's been our community representative on South Shore Community Action Council for I don't even know how many years. So I just want to shout out to Bernie. She's listening. Thank you, Bernie. And my last comment is just that I really had reservations about meeting in person, not for myself in particular, but because I had quite a few residents who were either in a certain age category or explained to me that they had certain risks. Some have immune system issues. People who actually wanted to be here at our meeting and were actually disappointed that we didn't have a Zoom meeting. So I think it's something that we might consider doing for a little bit longer. It concerns me to do everything too fast. It's just my thoughts. Anyone have anything else? Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn for the night.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're adjourned. I don't have my gavel. Here it is.